Across millennia, from the sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia to the snow-capped peaks of distant lands, echoes persist. Whispers of beings from beyond our world. Entities of immense power, often revered as gods, yet described with an uncanny familiarity. These aren't mere folktales, some argue, but fragmented memories. A collective unconscious recollection of an era when humanity was not alone, when the heavens themselves opened, and something truly extraordinary descended. What if these ancient accounts hold more than just symbolic truth? What if they are, in fact, historical records of our genesis? Our journey begins in Sumer, the cradle of civilization, nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Here, an advanced society blossomed thousands of years ago, giving us writing, the wheel, complex astronomy, and sophisticated legal systems. But alongside these monumental achievements, the Sumerians left behind an even more astonishing legacy: thousands of clay tablets inscribed with a script known as cuneiform. These aren't just ledgers or king lists, they chronicle an epic saga, a version of history radically different from anything taught in schools, detailing a profound connection to entities they called the Anunnaki. Who were these beings, and what did they teach humanity? These cuneiform tablets, numbering in the tens of thousands, meticulously recount events predating recorded history. They speak of beings described as those who from heaven to earth came. Their narratives detail an origin story for humanity that challenges conventional archaeology and evolutionary biology. They paint a picture of deliberate intervention, of intelligent design from an unexpected source. Are these merely elaborate myths designed to explain the inexplicable, or do they contain literal accounts of actual encounters? The language is often straightforward, almost like a historical chronicle, detailing motives, conflicts, and resolutions. It beckons for a deeper look. It was Zecharia Sitchin, a scholar of ancient Semitic languages, who ignited global interest in the Anunnaki. Starting in the 1970s, Sitchin published a series of books, most notably The 12th Planet, claiming his unique translations of these Sumerian texts revealed a cosmic saga previously overlooked by mainstream academia. He presented a narrative so radical, so utterly paradigm-shifting, that it continues to provoke fervent debate. Sitchin argued that the Sumerian accounts were not allegories, but factual histories of extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth long ago. A bold assertion that demanded further scrutiny. Sitchin's groundbreaking work, The 12th Planet, posited that the Sumerian texts described an additional planet in our solar system, one beyond Pluto, which they called Nibiru. This celestial body, he claimed, followed a vast, elliptical orbit, entering the inner solar system only once every 3,600 years. It was from this mysterious world, according to Sitchin, that the Anunnaki journeyed. This central tenet of his work forms the very foundation of the Anunnaki narrative, providing a cosmic backdrop to their alleged arrival and intervention on Earth. A planet hidden, yet a catalyst for everything. Nibiru, often referred to as Planet X by some, is central to this theory. Its immense, elongated orbit means it spends most of its time in the outer reaches of our solar system, far from our sun's warmth. Yet, every 3 millennia and a half, it swings back. This periodic return, Sitchin argued, was not merely a celestial event, but a migratory corridor for its inhabitants. Imagine a world whose very existence dictated the fate of another, whose path crossed ours not by chance, but by a destiny woven into the fabric of the cosmos. A planetary ballet with profound implications. According to the tablets, around 450,000 years ago, a pivotal moment arrived. The Anunnaki, the advanced beings from Nibiru, embarked on an extraordinary interstellar voyage. Their own world, facing an existential crisis, compelled them to seek answers beyond their skies. They were not explorers driven by curiosity alone, but by a desperate need for survival. Their destination? A vibrant blue-green planet, rich in resources, capable of offering a solution. This wasn't merely a landing, it was an arrival that would forever alter the trajectory of a nascent world and its developing species. The reason for their harrowing journey was critical: Nibiru's atmosphere was degrading. The very air they breathed, the protective blanket around their world, was thinning, threatening their civilization with extinction. Without a viable atmosphere, their advanced society, their very existence, was doomed. This wasn't a slow decline, it was an urgent predicament. The Anunnaki, with their superior knowledge, understood the science of their planet's demise and, crucially, understood what was needed to avert it. A solution, they believed, lay millions of miles away, on a primitive, yet resource-rich, world. Their solution was audacious, rooted in advanced physics unknown to us: gold. Not for its monetary value, but for its unique physical properties. The Anunnaki theorized that if finely dispersed into their upper atmosphere, gold particles could act as a reflective shield, repairing the damage and preserving their world. Gold, therefore, became not a symbol of wealth, but a lifeline. A strategic resource of cosmic importance. The hunt for this rare element would dictate their actions, their journey, and ultimately, their interaction with the inhabitants of their chosen destination. A planet rich in gold. And so, their telescopic surveys, their deep space probes, identified Earth. A planet teeming with life, a nascent biosphere, and, crucially, abundant reserves of gold. Our world became their beacon, their last hope. They saw not a pristine wilderness, but a colossal mining opportunity, a cosmic extraction site. The scale of their endeavor was immense, requiring resources, labor, and an infrastructure unfathomable to early human minds. They came with a purpose, a plan, and the advanced technology to execute it. Earth, in their eyes, was simply a solution. The Sumerian texts described their landing: the 50, the Anunnaki, from heaven descended. Their primary touchdown point was Eridu, in ancient Mesopotamia, what we now know as modern-day Iraq. This site, according to Sitchin, became their initial base of operations, the command center from which their ambitious project would unfold. Eridu, meaning home in the faraway, served as their first outpost on this alien world, a hub of advanced technology amidst a primitive landscape. It was here, in the Fertile Crescent, that the seeds of a profound intervention were sown. From Eridu, the Anunnaki rapidly expanded their presence. They established other cities, not as urban centers for human habitation, but as strategically placed nodes in their complex network. These were, in essence, operational bases, airfields, and processing plants for the raw materials they sought. The texts speak of their leaders, Enlil and Enki, establishing their respective domains, overseeing different aspects of the massive mining operation. This was an organized, systematic colonization, driven by a single, overriding objective: to gather enough gold to save Nibiru. A grand, alien industrial complex. While Eridu served as their base, the primary source of gold was found far to the south, in what we now call Africa. The Anunnaki established extensive mining operations, digging deep into the Earth's crust. Archaeological evidence, some suggest, points to ancient, sophisticated mines in southern Africa, predating human civilization by hundreds of thousands of years. Were these indeed the sites where Anunnaki prospectors, with their advanced tools, began extracting the precious metal? The sheer scale of these purported ancient workings hints at an industrial effort far beyond the capabilities of any known terrestrial civilization of that period. Overseeing these arduous mining operations were the Ijiji. Described as a lower rank of Anunnaki, they were the workers, the ground troops, subjected to the harsh realities of constant toil. While still divine in origin, they bore the brunt of the physical labor, far from the command centers and the comfort of their leaders. Their existence was one of relentless effort, extracting the gold that would secure their home-world's survival. They were the muscle, the hands that pulled the precious metal from the earth. Their story, too, is etched into the tablets, one of increasing burden and simmering resentment. Years turned into decades, decades into centuries. The work was brutal, relentless, and unforgiving. The Ijiji, though beings of a superior race, were not immune to exhaustion, resentment, and a profound weariness. The conditions in the mines, deep underground, were suffocating. The heat, the dust, the sheer physical demand, all took their toll. The Sumerian texts speak of their burden being too great. A growing discontent festered, a sense of injustice among those tasked with saving their world. How long could such a monumental effort be sustained before breaking point was reached? And then, it happened. The Ijiji, pushed beyond their limits, laid down their tools. They refused to work. This was no mere strike, it was an open rebellion against their superiors, a desperate plea for relief. The mining operations, vital for Nibiru's survival, ground to a halt. The Anunnaki leadership, specifically Enlil, the chief of operations, faced a catastrophic crisis. Without the gold, Nibiru was doomed. The very beings they relied upon had turned against them. What radical solution could possibly resolve this unprecedented dilemma? The rebellion plunged the Anunnaki into a profound crisis. Their entire mission was jeopardized. Who would now perform the grueling labor? The senior Anunnaki themselves were too few, and perhaps too accustomed to command, to undertake the heavy mining. The very survival of their home planet hung precariously in the balance. This unprecedented situation demanded an equally unprecedented solution, one that would redefine their relationship with this primitive world. A new source of labor was desperately needed. But where could it come from? It was Enki, the brilliant chief scientist and brother of Enlil, who offered a daring, almost unthinkable proposal. He suggested creating a new primitive worker. Not to bring more Anunnaki from Nibiru, but to engineer a hybrid being, indigenous to Earth, capable of understanding and following commands, and crucially, strong enough to endure the brutal mining conditions. This was a plan that ventured into the very essence of creation, playing God with the burgeoning life on this planet. The idea was shocking, controversial, but perhaps the only viable path forward. To execute Enki's audacious plan, he required the expertise of Ninhursag, the chief medical officer and geneticist of the Anunnaki. She was the one with the knowledge of manipulating life, of crafting new forms. The tablets describe her as the mistress of the mountain, the lady of birth. Her involvement was crucial. She possessed the biological acumen necessary to blend Anunnaki DNA with that of an existing terrestrial species. Together, Enki and Ninhursag would embark on an experiment that would define the very essence of human existence. Their laboratory was Earth itself. The chosen species for this genetic blueprint was a hominid already present on Earth, Homo erectus, or perhaps a closely related pre-human ancestor. These beings possessed the basic physical attributes: bipedalism, manual dexterity, a developing brain that could be enhanced. The goal was not to create fully independent, intelligent beings, but rather strong, obedient workers. The Anunnaki sought a functional bridge between themselves and the primitive life forms of Earth. This selection of a terrestrial template was key, allowing them to anchor their genetic modifications to an already adapted species. The site of this unprecedented genetic experiment, according to Sitchin's interpretation, was in the ancient African continent, close to the very mines where gold was being extracted. Deep within concealed caverns, or perhaps within specially constructed facilities, the divine geneticists began their work. Imagine the scene: advanced Anunnaki technology blending with organic terrestrial matter, attempting to forge a new species. This was no crude trial and error, but a sophisticated, deliberate process. Africa, the birthplace of humanity, takes on an even more profound significance within this narrative. The crucible of creation. The path to success was not immediate. The Sumerian tablets candidly describe early attempts as grotesque failures. Beings with deformities, creatures incapable of survival, or lacking the necessary intelligence to perform tasks. These were the prototypes, the discarded experiments, the genetic dead ends. Ninhursag meticulously documented these initial setbacks, refining the process, learning from each misstep. It was a painstaking, trial-and-error endeavor, even for beings of advanced scientific understanding. The very act of creation, even for gods, proved complex and fraught with ethical implications. Finally, after numerous attempts, a breakthrough. The Sumerian texts speak of the Lulu Amalu, the mixed one or primitive worker. This was the first successful hybrid, a being possessing the physical strength needed for labor, combined with just enough intelligence to understand and execute commands. This was not yet Homo sapiens as we know them, but a crucial step towards it. A being designed for a singular purpose, to alleviate the burden of the Anunnaki. A truly momentous creation, born of desperation and divine ingenuity. The spark of life meticulously ignited. The culmination of their genetic project was the Adamu, what we now recognize as Homo sapiens. This was the fully functional, intelligent, and adaptable worker they sought. A being carrying the genetic code of both terrestrial hominids and the Anunnaki themselves. The Adamu was not merely a tool, it possessed a higher cognitive capacity, a potential for consciousness and self-awareness, that perhaps even its creators hadn't fully anticipated. This fusion, these forbidden genes, created a species ready to serve, yet harboring a hidden spark of its divine heritage. The dawn of humanity, reimagined. The primary, indeed sole, purpose of this newly created race was unequivocally labor. To mine the gold, to tend the fields, to build the Anunnaki settlements. Humanity, in this controversial narrative, was not an accidental product of evolution, but a deliberately engineered workforce. A tool. A means to an end. The Sumerian texts are clear on this point, describing humans as black-headed ones whose destiny was to bear the yoke. This fundamentally alters our understanding of our place in the cosmos, suggesting we were not masters of our own destiny, but subjects of a higher, alien authority. Initially, these first humans were forbidden from reproducing. Their numbers were to be controlled, their existence managed. They were sterile, created for a finite purpose, a controlled experiment. This restriction, perhaps, was a safeguard against unchecked growth, or an attempt to maintain a manageable labor force. The Anunnaki, it seems, desired a contained species, one without the complexities of natural proliferation. This prohibition speaks volumes about the Creator's intent to maintain absolute control over their living tools. But what happens when the created begins to yearn for more? Yet, a twist emerged. The tablets suggest that Enki, the very architect of humanity, began to feel a connection, a burgeoning compassion for his creations. Defying the decree of his brother Enlil and the Anunnaki Council, Enki covertly intervened. He bestowed upon humanity the ability to procreate, the gift of independent reproduction. This act of defiance was a game-changer, granting humans a vital aspect of natural life, effectively breaking the Anunnaki's control. Was this an act of true benevolence, or simply another step in an intricate, cosmic plan? With the newfound ability to procreate, humanity's numbers began to swell. The primitive workers multiplied, filling the lands, their presence becoming increasingly undeniable. This rapid expansion, while providing an even larger labor pool for the Anunnaki, also introduced unforeseen complexities. A burgeoning population brought noise, unforeseen behaviors, and a growing sense of identity. What began as a controlled experiment was now evolving beyond its original parameters. The Earth was no longer just a mining colony, it was becoming a world of humans. A vital inflection point in our nascent history. This exponential growth deeply troubled Enlil. He viewed humanity as noisy, unruly, and a growing nuisance. Their numbers, their free will, their increasing deviation from their original design, became a source of profound irritation. Enlil saw them not as valuable workers, but as a destructive force, polluting the earth and disturbing the cosmic order. His initial concern about labor had morphed into a desire for control, then perhaps, for eradication. The stage was set for a dramatic conflict between creator and creation, mirroring ancient tales of divine wrath and human frailty. As centuries passed, the inexorable return of Nibiru began to make its presence felt. Its massive gravitational pull exerted forces upon our solar system, causing celestial disturbances. Earth's ice sheets would begin to melt, the oceans would churn, and immense tidal waves would sweep across the land. The Anunnaki, with their advanced astronomical knowledge, foresaw this coming cataclysm. They understood the mechanics of the impending disaster, the cyclical nature of Nibiru's passage, and its devastating effects. A cosmic clock was ticking, counting down to an epoch-defining event. Unlike humanity, blindly living out their lives, the Anunnaki knew what was coming. They possessed the foresight, the scientific models, and the means to prepare for the approaching deluge. The impending catastrophe was not an act of random chance, but a predictable consequence of their home planet's orbit. They debated, they planned, they made choices. Choices that would seal the fate of their human creations. Their advanced intellect provided not just prediction, but power. The power to save, or the power to destroy. This foreknowledge, a divine burden, set them apart. Driven by his growing disdain for humanity, Enlil saw the coming flood as an opportunity. A natural, catastrophic event that could effectively purge the Earth of its noisy human problem. He proposed that the Anunnaki should simply retreat to their skyborne vessels, allow the deluge to run its course, and let humanity perish. No warning, no intervention. A cosmic reset. This was a chilling decision, a death sentence pronounced by the very architects of human life. The moral implications were immense, highlighting the vast, unfathomable gap between creators and their creations. But once again, Enki intervened. Unable to stand by and watch his creations be annihilated, he defied Enlil's command. Secretly, Enki visited Ziusidra, the Sumerian counterpart to Noah, and Utnapishtim in later myths. He imparted knowledge of the coming flood and gave precise instructions for building an ark, a vessel that could withstand the cataclysm. This secret act of compassion, a rebellion against his own kind, saves not just Ziusidra and his family, but the genetic lineage of all humanity. A single, defiant act against cosmic indifference. Then, the waters came. Not as rain alone, but as colossal tidal waves, as melting ice sheets from Nibiru's passage, as the very earth convulsed. The Sumerian tablets describe a world submerged, a great darkness, and the roaring of the storm. For days and nights, the planet was consumed by the deluge. The Anunnaki themselves, watching from their orbiting craft, were reportedly terrified by the ferocity of the event they had predicted. It was a planetary reset, a moment of profound destruction and purification. A terrifying display of cosmic power. When the waters finally receded, a new, desolate world emerged. But against all odds, life persisted. Ziusidra's ark, carrying not just humans but also various animal species, had survived. This was a profound shock to Enlil, who believed his plan to eradicate humanity had succeeded. The unexpected survival of humanity meant the Anunnaki still had a potential labor force, albeit one that had endured immense suffering. From the wreckage, a new beginning unfolded, forged in defiance and the resilience of a species deemed expendable. The ultimate test of humanity's will to endure. The post-flood world presented the Anunnaki with new realities. They had lost much of their infrastructure, their gold mines were flooded, and their previous plans were disrupted. More importantly, humanity, though diminished, had proven its resilience. The Anunnaki realized they still needed humans for labor, for rebuilding, and perhaps, for worship. Their relationship with their creations shifted. From purely utilitarian, it now became one of direct oversight and, perhaps, grudging respect. The dynamic had changed irrevocably. They would rule, but they would also teach. Recognizing humanity's survival and its enduring utility, the Anunnaki decided to rule humanity directly. They established the first kings, the first priests, acting as intermediaries between the gods and the people. They provided laws, taught agriculture, developed astronomy, and initiated the complex structures of civilization that blossomed in Sumer and Egypt. This was a benevolent form of subjugation, guiding humanity's development while still maintaining control. The alien gods became the divine patrons, the architects of our earliest empires, shaping every aspect of nascent human society. Our foundational knowledge, their gift? This period of direct Anunnaki rule, according to the Sitchin narrative, laid the groundwork for all subsequent ancient civilizations. The myths, the pantheons of gods with human-like characteristics and divine powers, the advanced knowledge passed down through generations, all are seen as remnants of this direct interaction. From the Epic of Gilgamesh to the Egyptian deities, the influence, if this theory holds, is pervasive. We are left with tantalizing questions. How much of our history is truly our own? How much was seeded, guided, or even imposed by these celestial visitors? The echoes still resonate. Eventually, the Anunnaki left. Perhaps their gold-gathering mission was complete, or Nibiru's orbit took them too far. The texts speak of their gradual withdrawal, their return to the heavens. They left behind a humanity transformed, intelligent, civilized, yet still bound by the myths and structures they had helped create. Their departure marked the end of an era of direct divine intervention, transitioning into a period where humanity was left to navigate its own destiny, albeit with a profound and perhaps unacknowledged heritage. A void left behind, filled with memory and mystery. But their story, and perhaps ours, is not yet over. Many ancient texts, including those interpreted by Sitchin, contain a recurring theme: the promise of return. That one day, the Anunnaki will come back. This lingering prophecy poses the ultimate question: what will happen when Nibiru completes its next cycle? What will greet them if they do return? Are we prepared to face our alleged creators? The Anunnaki Genesis, a tale of creation, rebellion, and survival, leaves us with an unfinished chapter, a future shrouded in both wonder and apprehension. Are we alone, or merely awaiting reunion?